On behalf of Williamson College of the Trades, I want to welcome all of you here today as we pay tribute to Henry M. Rowan. Among our guests, we're pleased to welcome Mr. Rowan's family, his wife Lee, his daughter Ginny Smith and her husband Manning, Lee's daughter Sarah Dorsey and daughter-in-law Pamela Dorsey. And Lee, we're especially happy to see you here, and given that she's just recently got out of rehab today with a new hip, and we are excited that she is here with us. So thank you for being here. I'd also like to introduce the members of our Board of Trustees that are here today. Dick Clemens, Bill Strine, Dick Storm, Nick Davey, Art Lalo, John Lawton, Chris Schell, Tom Ott, Stacy Starr and his wife Joyce, Steve Kelly and his wife Pat, Mike Piotrowicz and his wife Pam, Bill Bonenberger, our vice chairman, and his wife Janet, and Wayne Watson, our chairman, and his wife Marie. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for joining the Williamson students, staff, and faculty as we remember and honor a great American, Hank Rowan. Hank's life started with humble beginnings. He grew up with little money, was raised by a single mother in northern New Jersey. From an early age, he took an interest in making money through enterprise. His mother made sure he did it right and did not take any shortcuts. He developed a lifelong desire to learn and achieve, and he was not afraid to take risks. At the age of 9, he started his own first business, raising chickens and selling eggs. Wanting to teach her son how business works, his mom decided that she would make him pay for the chicken feed instead of just giving it to him. So he not only received a great lesson in the price of doing business, but he also learned the importance of being frugal and using what you have wisely, lessons we know well here at Williamson. Hank began his college education studying science at Williams College, but his college days were cut short when World War II began. He served in the Army Air Corps as a bomber pilot. He was certified on flying B-17s and B-29s, but the war ended before he had a chance to actually fly in combat. After the war ended, he used the GI Bill to earn a degree in electrical engineering at Massachusetts Institute of Technology. He began his career working for Ajax Electrothermic Corporation in Trenton, New Jersey, where he learned about the manufacturing of induction furnaces. He offered that company several ideas on how to improve the design of their furnaces, but they were really not interested in any innovation. They were interested in the status quo. They had a monopoly. Nobody else was making furnaces, and they were content with their product. After Hank designed and built his own induction furnace in his backyard in 1953, he claimed it was the most advanced 60-pound induction furnace anyone had ever built. Full of confidence and frustrated by his company's reluctance to try his new innovations, he sold his family home and with the profits started Inductorherw, manufacturing induction furnaces for industry. It was a slow process to get a new business up and running, but things improved rapidly after he got his first large customer, the U.S. Mint in Philadelphia. And there's a great story that goes with that that's in his biography called The Fire Within, which I read prior to my first time meeting with him. But it involves a pretty bold boast that the situation with this new furnace was that they thought it was great, but it would require a lot of maintenance and a lot more cleaning time, and the maintenance folks thought it would take hours to change these things out. And he said, I could do it in 10 minutes. He didn't know if he could do it in 10 minutes, but he said he could do it in 10 minutes. And guess what? They said, fine, prove it. And it's quite an interesting story, but got a little dramatic, but he did it in 10 minutes, and that was his first big contract, and the rest is really history. Today, Inductorherw is part of the Inductorherw Group. It is located in Rancocas, New Jersey, and the company has grown now to include 40 subsidiaries all throughout the world. His company's furnaces account for more than half of all the induction furnaces in the entire world. Hank's first gift to Williamson came in the year 2000. It was a very generous first-time gift, and many more followed. But his most impactful gift to Williamson came in 2007. He issued a $5 million challenge grant to get us closer to our fundraising goals in our campaign that was going on at the time. Hank did not just want to hand us the money. He wanted us to do it his way, and his way was to earn it. So his challenge grant was designed to help us obtain gifts from first-time donors and to inspire longtime donors to increase their gifts to try to match his offer. It was while we worked at meeting this challenge grant that we were introduced to Jerry and Marguerite Lenfest. We asked Mr. Lenfest if he would be willing to help us meet Hank's challenge. After thinking it over and recognizing the big need that we had in building our endowment, he said no, he was not interested in meeting that challenge, but that he would make a gift of $20 million if Hank would partner with him and also donate $20 million. Hank agreed to do it, and the result was a total of $45 million in support of our endowment, which nearly doubled the size of our endowment at the time. These gifts came to us at a time when we desperately needed them. Without stealing Mr. Wisniewski's thunder, as he talks a little bit about it, we all feel that is something that God had a hand in. In fact, if not for these generous gifts, Williamson would have been faced with the tough decisions of cutting programs and decreasing enrollment. At the time our school was experiencing financial difficulties, Hank's transformational philanthropy secured the scope of Williamson's services for hundreds of deserving young men. Hank had no prior knowledge of Williamson. He didn't attend our school, and I didn't even know anybody who went here. But he decided to support Williamson because he believed in our unique mission, our commitment to frugality, and he liked that we were providing well-trained tradesmen for the American workforce. He especially appreciated the fact that we took no federal or state money to accomplish our mission. Mr. Rowan was a fierce competitor and a man of many talents. He loved to race sailboats. He had a passion for that, and in 1992, at the age of 70, competed in the Olympic sailing trials. Imagine that. He also loved flying, and he built an airport at his firm's headquarters with a fleet of 10 aircraft that he frequently flew. He wanted his service reps to be licensed pilots so that when there was a problem with one of his furnaces, Inductorherw would be on site as quickly as possible. How's that for customer service? In 2012, Hank was inducted into the New Jersey Aviation Hall of Fame, having logged over 8,000 flying hours. We have gathered here today because Hank Rowan is no longer with us. He passed away on December 9th. And we here at Williamson wanted to find a way to pay tribute to this man who has meant so much to us. There is only one other man who has done as much financially for Williamson College of the Trades as Henry M. Rowan, and that man is our founder, Isaiah Van Sant Williamson. Just like Isaiah Williamson, Hank was not content to build great wealth and then just spend it on himself. He saw that a responsibility came with wealth, and he gave generously over the years to many different organizations and schools, most notably giving $100 million to Glassboro State College in New Jersey in 1992. At that time, it was the largest gift to a public college in the history of higher education, and the school changed its name to Rowan University in his honor. For many people, the American dream consists of being successful, and that means amassing great wealth. For great Americans like Hank Rowan and Isaiah Williamson, their dream was a little different. They were extremely successful and amassed great wealth, but they used that wealth to support worthy causes they believed in, and that generosity has not only helped thousands, it has left a legacy that will continue on long after they had passed away. Hank did not offer his support to an organization unless he felt he was able to leave that organization better off as a consequence. And if you look around our campus, you will see that Hank's generosity did have enormous impact. Today, our college is stronger than ever, and our students are benefiting more than ever from the excellent education they receive here. Hank Rowan has truly etched his name in Williamson's history for all time. We will repay our debt to him by continually, earnestly in our mission while seeking to improve all the time. Thank you, Mr. Rowan. Your impact will be felt here for years to come, and we will not forget.
Good afternoon, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here. Welcome. Welcome to the Rowan family. Such a pleasure to have you here. I'm grateful to say that my life has been so heavily impacted by two great philanthropists, Isaiah Williamson creating Williamson College of the Trades in 1888, and then Mr. Rowan securing the school's foundation with his generous endowment gift in 2008. Without the actions of these two men, I would not be standing here addressing you all. In fact, none of us would be here. So we are very grateful for these two men. I'm proud and pleased to be a senior at Williamson College of the Trades and class president. In a few weeks, I'll be graduating and starting the next phase of my life, a working adult with many responsibilities. I'm pleased to have gotten my education and foundation at Williamson. And if it were not for the support of Mr. Rowan and so many others like him, none of this would be possible. I want to offer my thanks to Mr. Rowan for his very large part in making my education and the education of many others possible. Williamson exists today because of the charitable investments of generous individuals like Mr. Rowan. These gifts create an extraordinary opportunity. It is the responsibility of each student to master a trade, become useful and a respected member of society, and realize that there is so much potential. And I speak to my peers, take advantage of this opportunity, not for granted. As Mr. Rowan quoted in a published article, to my way of thinking, Williamson stands for enduring things. It stands for hard work, good character, and productive employment. You can see today that it's as relevant as it was a century ago. It's strange to think that there aren't hundreds more schools like it. Astonishing, really. And I agree with him. We are a gem among schools. I've had the opportunity to read about the life of Henry Rowan, and I find that the story of this successful man is inspiring. Mr. Rowan served in the Army, and he once compared his military life to the Williamson life. Up early in the morning, hard at work right away, and a good night's sleep. While the positive value of the discipline may elude us at the moment, acquiring good habits that become second nature will last us a lifetime. At Williamson, I've learned the values of faith, integrity, diligence, excellence, service, leadership, and these core values are exemplified by Mr. Henry Rowan. I'm very grateful for his impact on this school, and he has left a very great legacy for all of us to follow in. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Rowan family, guests. There's nothing I can really say much to add to my two predecessors who have gotten up here and spoken. But I can say I graduated in the class of '68, long before Mr. Rowan came about. But I want to tell you what, I am very appreciative as an alumni because I figure through your generosity, there are probably about 700 young men who have been able to carry on and get an education and go to work for a living. Because without your donation back in the year '07, this school would have been in severe financial disarray. So I won't say much more than that, other than I'd like to read something from a gentleman from the class of 2008, Mr. Kevin Hatch. Mr. Hatch says, "We all knew that the donation from the Rowan family was a monumental transformational gift that would help to secure the future of Williamson. The Williamson community was filled with excitement and gratitude when President Reid made the monumental announcement. Every morning in chapel, we look at one of the core beliefs from Mr. Williamson that one should, quote, lift the man and the boy next to you as high as you can reach, unquote. The Rowan family truly lifted the future of Williamson College of the Trades into an environment where it can continue to produce useful and respectful members of society." And with that, I'll close, and I would like to say, on behalf of the Alumni Association and Ladies Auxiliary, we'd like to present you with a special personal gift just for you, Mrs. Rowan, to show our appreciation.
Good afternoon. At this, the occasion of Williamson College of the Trades tribute to Henry Rowan, I want to take a moment to recognize and remember that Williamson is just one of many educational institutions to benefit from Mr. Rowan's great generosity. The list includes Doane Academy in Burlington, New Jersey, and, as President Rounds noted, most notably his gift of $100 million that helped transform Glassboro State College into nationally recognized Rowan University. I am pleased to announce that this summer, Williamson will be embarking on the creation of an articulation agreement with Rowan University. I heartily echo the words of Dr. Stephen Chin, Associate Dean of the Henry M. Rowan College of Engineering at Rowan University, when he said, "We are both beneficiaries of Mr. Rowan's vision and generosity, and we are very interested in exploring collaborative opportunities between our institutions." I can only imagine that Mr. Rowan would be particularly gratified by a partnership between these two schools that meant so much to him. I speak this afternoon on behalf of the faculty and staff of Williamson to honor Henry M. Rowan for his gift that transformed Williamson by allowing the school to continue in its mission. When he established this school, Isaiah Williamson specifically stipulated that the school should pay for the salaries, wages, and other compensation of managers, officers, agents, teachers, instructors, workmen, or other employees, people like me. The income from the initial money provided by Mr. Williamson, in combination with countless gifts throughout the decades, had been sufficient to discharge this responsibility. And it was in the year 2000 that Mr. Rowan first joined this list of many donors, often making annual gifts of $25,000 or $50,000. However, it was in December of 2007 that Mr. Rowan gave his great gift of $20 million, eventually $25 million, to Williamson. December of 2007. I'd ask you to take a moment to mentally rewind to 2007, specifically to the economy of 2007. Students, such a trip back may not be so helpful for you. You were likely in elementary school at the time. But for those of us who are a little older, it is hard to forget what happened as we moved from 2007 to 2008. In the few short months that immediately followed Mr. Rowan's gift, we saw the arrival of what has come to be known as the Great Recession. It is safe to say that were it not for the gifts of Henry Rowan and Jerry Lenfest, the Williamson of today would almost certainly have much fewer students, greatly reduced faculty and staff, and at least a couple fewer shop programs. It is safe to say Williamson would look very, very different and would be having a much smaller impact in our world. It was Mr. Rowan's gift that provided a miracle of transformation, allowing Williamson to continue the pursuit of its mission. Former President Paul Reid often remarked that the history of Williamson has been a history of miracles. A brief consideration will find literally thousands of small miracles and a handful of spectacular miracles. There was the initial miracle of the vision of Isaiah Williamson himself in founding the school. There was the miraculous intervention of the John Wanamaker estate in rescuing the school after the Great Fire of 1957. And 50 years later, in 2007, we have a third spectacular miracle, the donations of Rowan and Lenfest that allowed Williamson to escape the ravages of the Great Recession. As a member of the faculty and staff here at Williamson, and on behalf of my colleagues, allow my voice to join the resounding tribute to Henry Rowan, a man that literally saved this school. I will conclude my remarks by offering to you the words of former President Paul Reid. Paul and Cheryl, who so wanted to be here for this tribute, are currently in South Korea, so they're unable to join us. But that didn't stop President Reid from offering his own tribute to Henry Rowan, writing as follows. Hank Rowan was a patriot in every sense of the word. He certainly met the definition of a military patriot. His Army Air Corps service saw him flying the two most lethal heavy bombers of the war. Both the B-17 and the B-29 required real pilots to keep them flying. The B-29 in particular was one of the most demanding aircraft in the war in terms of the skill and courage it demanded from its pilots. And after World War II, Hank joined the thousands of hardworking Americans we now refer to as the greatest generation. And we don't use the word great lightly. Greatness came from their commitment to embody the values and dedication of the nation's founding fathers, when more than 200 years ago, they laid the foundation for America's greatness. Hank was a preeminent example of the American who built on that foundation by building a greater America for thousands of others over the last 75 years. You can get a sense of his commitment to those lives when you walk in the foyer of the main building of Rowan Industries in the nearby New Jersey. On the wall are listed dozens and dozens of names that joined Hank in the very humble beginning of his efforts to build an industrial giant, and they stayed with him decade after decade. All of us want to be a part of the life of someone committed to excellence and growth. And the men and women whose names are etched there were proud to have walked such a path with Henry Rowan. The loyalty of Rowan Industry employees to their founder is legend. Hank was fair and strong at the same time. He was demanding and generous in the same breath. He had the highest of expectations for people and organizations, and he was committed to even greater demands for excellence in himself. It was an honor to sit at his conference table and discuss everything from his love of his country to his philosophy of leadership. Our hours together made me a better man and opened my mind to new possibilities for my own personal future. And he infused that understanding and sense of purpose in everyone who had the privilege to get to know him. Hank Rowan was not a person to support anything unless he was able to leave that person or organization better as a consequence of that support. He gave with an expectation of performance in much the same way that Isaiah Williamson practiced his philanthropy. Hank never let me leave a meeting with him without a list of ideas or challenges for myself or for Williamson. And when he committed his resources to Williamson, his generosity came with a price, too. That price will be paid over time as Williamson builds on its past to follow Hank's example of building an ever more excellent future. To fail to do that would be to ignore the unwritten agreement that went with his gift. That agreement was made with all of us, and in order to fulfill it, we can never stop expecting more of ourselves and more from this college, an institution I have seen him shed a tear of affection for more than once. We won't let you down, Hank, I promise. The words of Paul Reid. And now let me introduce, to represent the Board of Trustees, our second longest term board member, a member since 1989, a man who had a personal relationship with Mr. Rowan, Mr. Michael Piotrowicz.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Lee and Sarah and Pamela, for coming, Ginny and Manning, for being here to pay tribute to the great man we all love so much. I had the distinct pleasure of knowing Mr. Rowan for over 20 years, and I got to know him as a financial advisor. But as I got to know him better and better all the time, I knew he was a Williamson man. I told him about our mission
and I invited him to campus. Hank's relationship with Williamson started in the year 2000 when we had our first visit. I don't remember a ton about the visit, but I remember the ride home. And I can distinctly remember him saying, "You have something really good here. What your boys do makes a difference in the world. No one teaches responsibility anymore. You're preparing your boys for life." And I never forget this one. "It's too bad you don't have more students." From that point forward, Paul, Reid, and I had many, many meetings with Hank, and Paul many more than me. We talked about our endowment concerns, being forced to consume principal. We had charts and graphs. We had every presentation ready. And at the conclusion of all the meetings, he said, "I'll think about it." He never said no. He said, "I'll think about it." Then there was the magic day when it all started. We finished the business meeting at the house. Lee was present at the meeting. And at the end of the meeting, Hank said, "I want to talk to you about Williamson." I said, "Okay, that's great. What's on your mind?" He said, "I want to make a gift of $5 million to Williamson." After I fell off my chair, got up off the floor, thanked Hank profusely, he said, don't go so fast. There's more to it than that." He said, "The problem you have is not just money. The problem you have is you don't have enough donors. That's the problem. And so my gift is going to be to incent you to bring new donors to the school and tell the story to more people like me. So we're going to make this a matching program. Dollar for dollar against new gifts or gifts that are significantly increased. You have to expand your donor base." I agreed. I was excited. I got in my car, and I was driving back to my office, and the further down the road I got, I started to say to myself, what just happened there? Am I supposed to be happy, or am I supposed to be sad? $5 million. We haven't raised $5 million in 10 years from new donors, probably 20 years. So I called Paul Reid, our president, and I said, "Paul, I have some really good news, I think. We've got this amazing challenge grant from Mr. Rowan. The bottom line, we accepted the challenge, the board embraced the objective, and we're off." This was the start of the great philanthropic story. We battled for 2 years to raise $2 million, and we battled. We called on everybody. We tried everything. And then we had the opportunity to talk with Jerry Lenfest to request $3 million to close out the challenge gift. What we all know happened, it turned into a $40 million gift with Mr. Rowan and Mr. Lenfest contributing 10. The $5 million charitable challenge was still out there. If we accomplished everything, we had our $50 million goal, and we were off to the races. It was truly amazing. There were three real amazing things to me that happened. Number one, without the challenge grant, we would have never met Mr. Lenfest. So Hank was right. His vision, as always, was dead on. We needed new donors. I'm not sure this is exactly how he had it scripted, but we needed new donors. And we found one, and it worked. Second, We never worked harder at anything than to raise that last $3 million to close out the $5 million challenge. There's no way we were going to leave that money on the table. And when people say it's not about the money, I've learned in life it's usually about the money. But it was more than just about the money. It was about pride. And Williamson's pride was on the line. We couldn't face Hank Rowan without accomplishing the original task. We found many new donors, and many of those new donors continue to support our mission today. And three, the third amazing thing is that all that money raised now resides in what is known as the Rowan Endowment at Williamson College of the Trades. To put in perspective what Mike and Tom said earlier, our endowment hovers around $100 million based on what's happening in the market. 60 million of that is the Rowan Endowment, and 40 million of it is the main, what we historically call the main endowment. If you have a 5% withdrawal rate on those two endowments, the Rowan Endowment produces $3 million, and the main endowment produces $2 million. Where would we be today without that $3 million? Nowhere close to where we are. The word transformational is not used lightly here. This was truly a transformational gift. And one small thing that's really lost in a lot of this is that gift gave us the opportunity to increase the student enrollment by 20 students per year. And from that point forward, we increased our enrollment and have kept that enrollment increased to date. So 20 of you guys sitting here wouldn't have this opportunity for sure without that extra commitment from Mr. Rowan. What's lost in the story are two things. The first is that without Hank's wife, Lee, sitting by his side every step of the way and encouraging him as much as she possibly could, I don't think either the first $5 million or maybe the second $20 million would have happened. In fact, I remember walking out the door with the first $5 million, and Lee was kind of saying, like, "I'm sorry, Mike, you got to go find some new donors." I said, "We'll do it, Lee." She too loves Williamson and all that we represent. Thank you, Lee, for all you have done and all your support. And the second thing that's lost is, yes, the endowment has a $5 million income flow, but it doesn't cover our budget. We still need to raise each year $2 million to meet budget, and that's scraping everywhere we possibly can. Every year since 2002, the Rowan Foundation has supported Williamson, over and above everything else that we talked about prior. And that commitment to the school from the Rowan Foundation is now approaching $2 million, which we use to balance our budget. And without it, we would again be another institution. Lee Rowan, Jenny Smith, Manning Smith, they're Manning and Jenny's children, Jamie Smith and Rowan Watson, are all board members of the Rowan Foundation, and we thank you from the bottom of our heart for your continued support. Henry Rowan was a purpose-driven man. He had an interesting relationship with money. Our standing joke was, I'd say, Hank, you don't like spending it. You don't like giving it away. All you really like to do is make it. And the reason he liked making it was because it was this way that he kept score against his personal goals and his objectives in life, and how he could push his employees and how he could make the world a better place. He was not going to give money away unless there was a very strong purpose that he believed in and believed that that organization could make a difference. Closest to his heart was education. For us, in addition, at Williamson, his commitment to our values that he so strongly embraced gave him the connection to support our mission. As I planned these remarks, it gave me great opportunity to reflect. Reflect on the relationship, reflect on the man. A man I knew very well. And as I thought about Henry Rowan, and then thought about Isaiah Williamson, the man, which I've read as much as I can about, and in my 27 years on the board, have heard many, many stories. I thought of one of Mr. Williamson's quotes, that is this: "It was seeing boys, ragged and barefooted, playing or lounging about the streets, growing up with no education, no trade, no idea of usefulness, that caused me to think of founding a school where every boy could be taught some trade, free of expense." And when I read that, and specifically the words playing or lounging, growing up with no education, no trade, no idea of usefulness, the same passion would come out of Hank Rowan's heart when you reflect on that statement that Mr. Williamson made. It caused me to think about the men, specifically Hank Rowan, and what commonality he had with Isaiah Williamson. They did things the right way, with integrity, by working hard, by leading people, by being respected. They had strong self-image, positive attitude, impeccable reputations. They lived with purpose. They lived a frugal lifestyle. They helped others. They were real, just real, genuine people, down to earth, practical, straight shooters. They knew right from wrong and always chose right. Men of character, you could trust their word. They're ethical leaders. Believed anything worthwhile will be tough. You have to work to achieve. And they associated themselves with high quality people. Isaiah Williamson, born 1803, died 1889. Henry Rowan, born 1923, died 2015. They lived in different times, but their fortunes were made on the same principles. And they continue to be the values that guide us today, represented completely in the Williamson values that we live: faith, diligence, excellence, integrity, and service. In closing, I'd like to share with you a short video. I saw this recently at a board retreat that we had. And as this video was playing, the only thing I was thinking about was Henry Rowan. And how I wish that I could see taking my iPad to him and saying, Hank, look at this. I think it kind of says it all. It was, to frame this out, the video was shot in 2015 after a group of seniors were just presented their diplomas. One of the things I know he'd like about it, it was very low budget. It wasn't professionally done. It wasn't shot for this occasion, which he would have gone crazy. But it talks to what a Williamson education meant to these graduates.
I would say exactly what I said in my interview when I came here. You know, I didn't really know what to really say in the interview when I got asked certain questions. But the biggest thing that hit me was, you know, I didn't grow up poor, but I know I didn't grow up, you know, well off. You know, single mom, you know, always providing. And I said exactly this. I said, you know, I want to be able to provide for my family someday. You know, not have to worry about, you know, where's my next meal? Why are the lights off? You know, why is it so hot in here? Why is it so cold? You know, little things I thought about as a kid, and that's what I would tell a student coming in. You know, just want to keep that in mind for your future family.
I think that high school prepares you for like a normal college, but when you come here, it's just not the same. It's not what you thought a college is going to be like, and it's not what you're expecting at all. But today, May 29th, today is when it all pays off, and it's every day, every hour, every minute that you spent listening to an instructor, working, whatever it may have been that you were struggling with, it pays off. And I think everyone sitting here right now has a job. I think everyone sitting here has a future, has a good future. Everyone has a good head on their shoulders. And that's what you get when you work hard. And you're going to come here and you're going to work probably 3 or 4 times harder than what you would do at a normal college.
I think one of the biggest reasons to come here not only is the financial aspect of it. A lot of my friends graduated college. Number one, had trouble finding a job, finding employment. And then 2, all those loans that you got to pay off, you know, they're coming whether you have a job or not. You're going to be stuck with them. So coming out of Williamson, I feel like we're far ahead from a lot of other people our age, not only at where we're going to be in our career, the skills we learned here, but also the financial aspect where we're coming out of here, you know, hitting the ground running, ready to go, ready to start work, already in a good position. And then I think just, like I said earlier, the discipline that is instilled in you here is what the employers seek and is the reason that we all come out here with jobs.
And that's huge what Pat said. Like, I had 8 job offers when I took the one I have now, and they're still rolling in. I got a phone call yesterday for another one. How many college graduates have employers actively seeking them for employment? And I think that's one thing about this place. Like, besides everything else that this place has to offer, you will graduate with a job, guaranteed. If you want it, you got it.
Nothing's handed to you though.
Right.
You got to work hard in the 3 years. You got to keep your head on straight, stay out of trouble. You know, just discipline yourself. But when you look back on it, when the 3 years is over, you realize how worth it was and how grateful you are for the opportunity.
I think looking back in high school, you're a senior, you're ready to get out of high school, and everybody says, oh, college, the best 4 years of your life, best 4 years of your life. Now, I looked at it and said, all right, 3 years, I got to put in lots of hard work, get trained for what I want to do. And yeah, I might not have done the normal college thing, the normal 4 years, but after those 4 years, I think what you have after Williamson, you have a lifetime of great opportunities, a lifetime of vacations and promotions and everything like that. Rather than spending 4 years at a normal college, you have a lifetime of great benefits and awesome opportunities that you wouldn't have if you didn't spend those 3 years at Williamson.
I actually had a close friend, well, still my close friend, in high school, senior year. When I told him I was thinking about coming to Williamson, you know, first thing was, also all boys school. You know, in high school, that's the last thing you want to hear for college. But
I forgot about that. Yeah, me too.
You know, now I'm in my third, well, now I'm a graduate, actually, and, which is awesome. I'm a graduate, and, you know, he's just like, oh man, I wish I went to that school. You know, he owes crazy amounts of money. He's struggling in school. He's struggling to keep up with the payments. And now it's just like, he's looking at me and he's like, you're about to graduate. You know, so if I could talk, or you're a graduate, I'm sorry. So if I could talk to, if I could talk to any high school student, I would tell them, you know, make the mature decision. You know, it's hard to get through to them because they're coming out of high school, but you gotta really look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I going to the NBA? Am I going to the NFL? Am I going to be this big music star? Or, you know, I'm not saying not to chase your dream, but Williamson it'll give you direction. It'll put you in a position, you know. Something small as, you know, going to North Dakota for the summer. That was like I went to North Dakota for a summer to work, and I had never been on a plane before. You know, it was my first time getting on a plane was through Williamson. I got that experience through Williamson, so it's just, I think they should make the mature decision. You got to really look at yourself in the mirror and say, what do I need to do as a man? Not as what I'm seeing on television or what I see in movies or what this kid did or that kid did, because you got to make the decision for yourself. So
We are so blessed. We really are blessed. This is the best gift that's ever been given to me, by far.
I don't know if we're allowed to say this, but
You might want to whisper.
12:47. I don't want you guys to be late to chat.
We can always cut it.
I just think it's a cheat code. And keep it short and sweet. I think Williamson's a cheat code.
Yep.
It's like a cheat code.
Elaborate on that, Mark, because I'm an old guy. I know what you're saying.
It's like it's just I don't know. It's just like a.
Too good to be true.
Yeah, it's
Definitely
it's just a great school. Like you can't find what you get here. You can't find that nowhere. You're not finding that nowhere what you get here. 3 years free school to set you up for success. You can't find it nowhere.
I agree. I think the simple way to put it is 3 years of hard work and dedication and discipline is going to get you where you need to be successful for the rest of your life. You put in the time now and it's going to pay off time after time for the rest of your career and the rest of your life.
There's nothing like it. How true. I think that has a lot to do with why Hank Rowan did what he did for all you guys out there and all of us that love this school. I know he'd be proud of everybody in that video, and I know he'd be proud of every one of you students sitting here today. Personally, I'm proud to know that this is what we're working so hard to create. And that's how we're spending your hard-earned money, Hank. Every day, we prepare qualified young men to be respected leaders and productive members of society. Henry Rowan made a big difference at Williamson. He put us in position to continue our mission and left a legacy of philanthropy with his family. For this, we're so very, very grateful. On behalf of the entire Board of Trustees, I would like to express our sincere gratitude for the generosity of Mr. Rowan and the entire Rowan family. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. I want to just say a couple words to introduce Ginny Smith, Hank's daughter, who, with her husband Manning, have supported us through their foundation for all those years. Ginny is the chair of Inductorherw Corporation, active in the business since 1982, trustee of Rowan University, on the advisory council of Doane Academy and the Lake George Land Conservancy, vice president of the Rowan Family Foundation, married to her husband Manning for 38 years. 38 years. Two great, just fantastic children, Jamie and Rowan, both active in Inductorherw, and also on the Rowan Foundation Board. But most importantly, Ginny possesses the same qualities as her father. She's a hard-working leader. She's respected by everyone who knows her. She's honest. She's positive. She's down to earth. She's someone who can be trusted and someone of the highest character. Ginny walks in a large shadow, but at the same time is her own person. And a person who possesses the qualities that you'd want to have in a friend. Our relationship, although created through business, has evolved into a friendship, a true friendship. It's with great joy that I introduce to you Ginny Smith.
Thank you, Mike, for those very kind words, and I hope I can live up to them. Following these wonderful speakers here today, lots been said about Henry Rowan and who he is and what he's all about, and I think you're going to hear a little bit of repetition on my part, but I think you'll hear it from a different perspective, a different slant as his daughter. On behalf of our family, and especially Lee, his wife, I want to thank all of you for paying such a beautiful tribute to Henry Rowan. He is one of your proudest benefactors. He's a man who truly believed in Williamson, truly believed in you, my father. I want to tell you a little bit about Henry Rowan from my perspective, different slant, as I said, and what attracted him to this amazing school, and then why that matters. One thing I thought of as I was sitting here that I didn't have in my notes, but we talked about the Williamson man, and I was thinking that Dad's grandfather was named William Bourd, so he's a William's grandson. So there's some similarity there. But anyway, as his daughter, I can truly say that he was an extraordinary man. He was one who accomplished much. He set goals for himself and for others who were with him. And he set very competitive and challenging goals, as you have heard from some of these stories that the gentlemen have spoken. He challenged himself as much as he challenged everyone else. Very much like his gift to Williamson, with the challenge that he gave to the school and then he received from Mr. Lenfest. So being two competitive individuals, I'm delighted that it was the outcome of such competition that brought the result to you. Henry Rowan was all about excellence. He believed that no matter what one endeavored to do or endeavored to be, that he should strive to be the best, the very best. He never accepted anything as being pretty good. He hated that phrase, pretty good. He actually hated it so much, he said he wouldn't even allow anybody, including those in the family. How are you doing today? Pretty good? No. What's the matter? Okay, well, pretty good wasn't good enough. Why? Because it wasn't excellent. And if it wasn't excellent, it was not up to his standards. If it wasn't excellent, it wasn't good enough. So think about that when people ask you how you are today. He expected excellence from everyone, and as I said before, especially himself. He loved working with his hands. He loved carpentry. He loved machinery. He liked to create something new. He liked to improve on design, much like many of you. When something wasn't made to his standards, I remember as a young child, a very young child, and again as a teenager, and again as a young adult, his phrase, if something wasn't working and if something wasn't up to what he felt was the right way to be, or if I said, this isn't working right, he would say, well, it's probably a poor design. And often that was it. I think you, the students especially, will find this fascinating. He had every kind of tool that you and I could imagine. He had the hand tools, he had the chisels, the screwdrivers, the planes, the wrenches, every size, both the US and metric. He had power tools. I mean, I know that you work with all of these things. He had countless drills. He had saws. I was looking at his collection of saws when I was up at their summer place the other weekend. Circular saws, radial saws, band saws, planers, jigsaws, two presses. He had 4 chainsaws, and because they weren't all up to, weren't all sharpened at once, so he had to keep up with that. He had an incredible workbench that any of you would be just thrilled to see. He and his neighbor cut down a gigantic oak tree, and somehow, because of their ingenuity and their love of carpentry and wood and trees, I know you've studied trees, and they were able to make a bench that was, help me, Lee, what do you think, about 18, 20 feet long, and 4 feet wide and 5 feet thick. From a tree now. This is a tree that they felled by themselves. They planed it, they sawed it, they sanded it, they put polyurethane, everything you can imagine. That bench is incredible, if you should see it. And below the bench, he built, with his carpentry skills, drawers going down over here on one side, space in the middle, and then more drawers. Every drawer was labeled. Drills and chisels and wrenches and sandpaper and pencils, anything you can imagine that you should have in a workshop. And it's, I was looking at that just a couple months ago, and it really is quite extraordinary. He would have loved studying with you guys. I mean, he would have, I know when he came to visit, he spent, Mike tells me, more time out in the shop than he did talking to, the guys in the office. He loved those shops. They were just amazing. And he wanted to be there. In fact, if he'd lived longer, he would have been teaching there, I'm sure. He loved to work with his hands. He loved to share what he knew how to do. When I was 12, he and I built a little sailboat. And we made it the fastest, the most efficiently made, best sailboat, a little turnabout, N10, if anybody knows about them, that you could imagine. And it was a very fast little boat, so he got me into sailing, too. When he was a little boy, you've heard about his mother giving him opportunities. Well, she gave him a jalopy. Well, that's what they called them back then. I don't even know what it was. It wasn't a Model T or I don't know what it was. Was it a Dodge? Somebody knows. But anyway, she gave him this car, and he was excited because he was going to drive it all around. He wasn't old enough to drive yet, but he figured he could still drive it around. But she said, no, you don't get the keys or whatever. Or maybe it was maybe they started it this way. But you don't get to drive it until you take it fully apart, down to every bolt, and put it back together. And she had a mechanic watching over him to make sure that he took everything apart. Take it all apart, put it back together, and then he was allowed to drive it. And he did. Apparently, he did all kinds of things with it that his mother was terrified by, but she did that. Now, you also heard and have read about the where he had chicken and egg business. Well, the way Mr. Rounds describes it sounds very logical. You have the chicken, you have to feed. Well, basically, he had to sell enough eggs in order to buy enough feed so that, he had to buy enough chickens, raise enough eggs, and then have enough money from selling those eggs to buy the feed so you could have more chickens. And so I think he truly understood what we call the chicken and egg story. I really understand that. And I was also thinking, as I sat there reading about what his mother challenged him with, that I bet a lot of you out there have moms that did just the same thing. And I bet you all can thank them much for understanding this opportunity. And I just have a feeling that's very true in this audience. He had a strong belief in the unlimited capacity of individuals to achieve. That was a conviction that worked for him in his own abilities, at his company, and that's one of the reasons that he believed so much in you, the Williamson School students, faculty, administrators. He believed in Williamson not because he was passionate about learning and about the shop and those wonderful tools that meant so much to him, but very seriously, he admired the type of individual, and you've heard these from the other gentlemen earlier, type of individual who know the value of industry, being industrious, working hard, frugality, honesty. He admired the discipline and how it shaped an individual's character, how it shapes today. He admired the strength of character, and he agreed strongly with what Isaiah Van Sant Williamson, is that correct, said. And I think Mike both Mikes alluded to this a minute ago, saying that he said, every able-bodied young man who has learned a good mechanical trade, who is truthful, honest, frugal, temperate, and industrious, is certain to succeed and be useful and respected in society. And you know, I see here what Dad also would applaud, the way that Williamson is preparing its young men for life. One of your previous presidents said, we want our boys to become better fathers, husbands, employers, employees, neighbors, leaders, citizens, and gentlemen. And he's talking about you. That's pretty special. You all need to, and I know you do, stand tall and be proud of that. You are so fortunate to be here, and some of you in the video have said so. I loved hearing that. Each of you is, and soon will be, an identifiable Williamson man. It gives you an image. It gives you a true identity. It means you are one who is exceptional. You are one who stands out. You are one who now is being trained and is well poised to move out into the world to make a difference. I expect you will. Thank you very much. You're full of surprises. Oh, my.
So we thank you so much, Jenny, for sharing those thoughts with us. That's fantastic. What a great window into a wonderful man. And as a token of our appreciation, this is one, many of you graduates have seen this before. It's a signed and numbered print that shows, Williamson in the winter, and we thought you'd enjoy having it.
Very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your.
That's beautiful.
And I could
Why don't you? Walking down here without a railing, isn't it?
Thank you again so much. I would now like to bring forward the artisans. I have a special number that they're putting together for this tribute today, so I'll turn it over to them.
Some glad morning when this life is o'er, I'll fly away to a land on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. When the shadows of this life have gone, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Just a few more weary days and then I'll fly away to a land where joy shall never end. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away.
Thank you guys so much. Aren't they amazing? Fantastic. Great job. They're going to stay up here because they're going to lead us in the alma mater at the end of our remarks today. And so that brings us to the conclusion. And I hope for our students especially that you can kind of get a feel for how special Mr. Rowan was to all of us, especially to our school. So thank you all for being a part of this. One last piece that we're going to talk about is when Mike was mentioning the trustee retreat, and we talked about, I said as a new president coming in, such an amazing story, and I don't see anything named Rowan. I don't see anything named Lenfest. And they said, well, they were very humble guys, and we asked them about that. They didn't want anything named for them. That wasn't why they were doing it. But we talked a lot about that, and the decision was made that this building has been known as Maine ever since 1890, when it was constructed, will going forward be known as Rowan Hall in honor of Hank Rowan and his gift to the school. So. For as long as this school exists, that will always memorialize the amazing things that Mr. Rowan has done for all of us, and we think it's appropriate that that's a way to memorialize him. So, at this point, I will call up Chaplain Speck to close us out. We do the benediction and then the alma mater, or okay, all right. So we will have the artisans lead us in the alma mater and then benediction to finish out. Thank you.
Please stand and sing with us. A name there is which we revere, Williamson, our Williamson. It swells our hearts with love and cheer, Williamson, our Williamson. To live the truth our watchword stands, may we be loyal to thy demands, and champion truth where'er she stands, Williamson, our Williamson. When by the world's dark task dismayed, Williamson, our Williamson, will ever think of pledges made, Williamson, our Williamson. We've learned to share thy glorious gift. You fill our hearts with thoughts that lift, and now we pledge our love anew. Williamson, our Williamson.
And now may I close with a benediction and ask God's blessing on us as we go. The peace of God which passeth all understanding, keep your hearts and minds in the knowledge of the love of God and of his Son, Jesus Christ our Lord. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost be amongst you and remain with you always. Amen.